Cards to Yards, brought to you by the Adventure Stadium and the Adventure Begins, located on 1488, right next to a big old movie theater. I'm Chaz Graves, and here with me today, Preston Laird and Mark Blair.
All right, thanks, Chaz, for that introduction. As always, I'm here with Preston. I'm Mark, and this is Cards to Yards, where we talk about sports and sports cards. Preston, as we're recording this, the games have not started yet, but is your bracket already busted?
Yeah. I'm not a good bracketeer.
I have my working theory is just to either pick all dogs or all cats. When it worked out one time, there was a lady that had like a perfect bracket going into the final because she picked all dogs. She was like, I know nothing about basketball. I'm just going to pick all dogs. Well, the NFL has had its own version of March Madness, right?
Yeah.
Tom Brady sort of usurped not only the world of football, but also March Madness and Selection Sunday. We'll get to that in a second. So we usually like to start out with some interesting news that affects sports card collecting. eBay made quite a big announcement.
Yes, it did.
So they announced the eBay Vault. So essentially, they announced this 31,000 square foot facility, which I have a very low spatial intelligence, so I don't know how big that is. Is that like a parking garage, a mall? What is that?
Yeah.
So a lot, right? 31,000 square feet to store cards and collectibles from all over. So essentially, you would send them your stuff. They would have it, but you can transfer the ownership of that via, obviously, their auctions.
Yes.
This is something that a few other companies have done in the past, just to have a safe place for those high-end cards and collectibles. And eventually, this is probably going to lead to stuff like fractional sales. We talked about that, people buying shares of like a $5 million Patrick Mahomes rookie card and stuff like that. And then also live commerce, so maybe some live auctions. I'm assuming at some point, they might even go to the point of like, hey, we have your Michael Jordan PSA 10 on camera, and you can like log in and watch it. Almost like when you drop your dog off, to a high-end groomer, and you can watch them in the kennel and video check in on them and all that.
Get the eBay phone app where you can look at your babies anytime you want.
Oh yeah. And so eBay has clearly jumped on the collectibles and card train that's blown up over the last few years. They estimate that this is going to hold $3 billion in assets over the next few years.
My goodness.
So what do you think about that as far as somewhere safe to store this? We're talking high-end collectibles, right?
Yeah.
We're talking PSA, like I said, PSA 10, Gretzky's, Jordans.
Oh, yeah.
Probably cards that, to a lesser extent are still worth thousands, but they've instituted this, and then we talked a few weeks ago about their authentication process, where if you have a card sale, I believe over $500, you have to send it in, get it over $700. Yeah. You send it in, you get it certified, and then it gets shipped out to the buyer. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's not for everybody. I think more of the high-end collectible market, like you were saying, is probably a more appropriate use for this. Not $10, $20 cards, although I don't know if they've got a limit as far as value, what they're willing to store. But I'm sure that for the higher end collectors out there, it's a really nice option. Of course, I'm sure that their cards are going to be insured and safe in a nice climate controlled environment. They don't have to worry about it. They don't have to worry about their house burning down or put in a safety deposit box. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea. It's going to speed up some transactions. There's going to be a lot more transparency in between those transactions. So if there's disputes and things of that nature, then eBay's directly involved in it. And I think for the seller, it's probably really, really good because eBay tends to side with the buyers a lot of times when they really shouldn't. Over the course of the 20 years I've been dealing with eBay, they're really, really bad about taking care of the sellers out there because there's so many loopholes that people take advantage of. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea. We'll see what happens. eBay is the ones that really started the secondary card market to begin with, and then you had these other companies that kind of jumped in and did something similar the storage facilities and such. And I guess eBay says, hey, man, if they're doing it, we might as well do it because we're the ones that started it. So
it was. I'm sure there's a few like early pioneers of internet sales, but it was really. I mean, it was a garage sale online.
Yeah.
The first of its kind, still the biggest of its kind. A titan in the industry, not going anywhere. So
it's a cash cow.
Yeah, it's a cash cow. I think it's a good move, and I think it protects collectors, especially those who may not even know that things like counterfeits exist.
Yeah.
So the authentication that they already announced, and then with the addition of this, it will be interesting to see on those items. I mean, would there be a return policy? Because obviously you can't see it and hold it if you just transferred that. And someone had brought up a good point online in a video, kind of a review about this situation where some people will buy cards when a player is hot, and then if they got injured, they would go, oh, 30-day return policy.
Yep.
I want to return all my Tatis rookies now that he's out for 3 months, and then maybe buy him back low. So
there's a lot of that goes on.
I think like you said, it not only protects the buyer, but it looks like it's going to be very good for the seller as well.
Yep.
All right, so let's get down to it. March Madness, and we're not talking about the brackets. We're talking about Tom Brady and his inability to stay retired. So this guy, 59 days, he retires from retirement.
Yeah.
This was shorter than the MLB lockout, which is also over. Thank goodness. We'll get to that in a second. What do you think? Now, we don't know what Tom Brady's thinking, but you already had a feeling that he wasn't going to stay retired.
I did. And if you remember our last podcast, I mentioned the fact that I thought it was unusual timing for him to announce his retirement when he did. It just felt strange to me. I really did have a gut feeling that he was going to become unretired, and sure enough, here we are. It wasn't a huge shock to me, but a little surprised.
Yeah.
But not totally unexpected. I mean, we're going through the whole Brett Favre syndrome all over again. You know what I'm saying?
And to his credit, though, I will say that the timing of his announcing his unretirement was actually worked out pretty well, because it was right before free agency, and the combine's going on now. Teams are getting ready to see who they need to draft. I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that he, even at his age, is still in the top 5.
Yes.
And man, when you look at like the top 10 QBs, the fall off is massive. Like, I don't know if it's ever been this big, and then you have someone like Big Ben retiring, who he might have been the top 15, top 20 quarterback, but he was still a name, like a franchise name. And now it's just wild. I mean, I almost wonder that, he has nothing to do with Seattle or Denver, but I almost do wonder the price that Denver had to pay to get Russell Wilson from Seattle, if that kind of made him perk his ears up and go, you know what, like, I might as well just play till my legs fall off.
Yeah, I don't know if I completely agree with that, because, I mean, number one, he's married to a woman that probably brings home more money than he does or has in the past.
Ciara? Oh, no, Giselle.
Giselle.
That could have gone for either one
Definitely
of those guys.
Giselle.
Yeah, it could have gone for either one.
I think he loves the game. They've been to back-to-back Super Bowls. They've got a tremendous team, lots of talent. I think the chemistry just is going to keep on building. And I think once he just sat down and thought about it, he's like, why in the heck am I going to retire when I've been to 2 straight Super Bowls? I'm not in my prime, but still got all the tools. I'm kind of glad that it's happened, because now we got a whole nother year of Brady mania, people going nuts for all the Brady cards that are going to be coming out. And so, it's good for the hobby.
Speaking of refunds and buyer's remorse, how do you think the person that bought that last ever Tom Brady touchdown ball for $519,000 feels now?
Oh my God, that's such a great point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
I mean, does that auction house have like a 30-day guarantee on that? Because this happened days after.
That's crazy.
And to your point, he has the perfect situation. He was the least sacked quarterback, least touched quarterback, least rushed quarterback, because of that offensive line. Do you think someone like Joe Burrow would have loved to swap places with him, or at least or at least bring that offensive line to Cincinnati. But
I mean, when you think about it, how good is Joe Burrow to be under that much pressure and still be one of the top quarterbacks in the league? I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he had Dallas's offensive line or Tampa's, holy moly, he'd probably throw for 6,000 yards.
And so back to the other quarterback with another superstar wife. So Russell Wilson, it didn't shock me, and to me, I think the price that Denver paid was fair.
Yeah,
I mean, 2 first rounds, 2 second rounds, 3 players, including a guy who could come in and at least be a backup quarterback in Drew Lock. I mean, you have 53 spots on that roster to fill. What was your thoughts on Russell Wilson?
Kind of mixed feelings on the subject. I think for Denver, it's fantastic. The money, I'm not sure if he's worth that at this stage in his career. I think he's on the downslope of his career. He's probably got another 3 or 4 years left in him. Had a very lackluster season prior with some tremendous talent on the receiver end. So I think related to the sports card market, it's going to generate more interest in his cards, and then it's also going to have a ripple effect when it comes to the receivers. You got KJ Hamler and you got Jerry Jeudy, so it's definitely going to light a fire under those couple of guys and increase their value in the card market. So it's going to be exciting. I mean, seeing Russell Wilson in a Bronco uniform is going to be really strange at first, but I'm really excited to see what happens.
Just as a person who follows the team who took 20 years to find a quarterback, and then now because of the mess the Texans find themselves in, we don't have one again.
Yeah.
I'd gladly give up, and especially the way our GM has used first round picks in the past.
Yeah.
I would gladly give up the 2 firsts, the 2 seconds for a franchise QB. And
it's hard to trust a franchise when it comes to the draft when they picked Tim Tebow in the first round.
Yeah.
I lost all respect for them after that day.
And as far as the 3 to 4 years left, maybe that would have been the case. I mean, some people were thinking 8, 9, 10, just based on Brady and his age. But again, that's a
mobile
that's
quarterbacks don't tend to last as long as pocket quarterbacks. So
but tremendous passer, and still a top name in the game. Speaking of another top name, Aaron Rodgers. He finally figured out, Green Bay's where the cheese is at. Because this guy got the most insane contract I've ever seen in my life. Did you see the numbers on this yet?
Yeah, it's insane.
3 years, $150 million. He stays with the Packers. This is all guaranteed. And next year, 2023, I thought I misread this, $59.3 million. I don't know how that doesn't go against like caps or luxury tax or what, but like they figured out some way to get that done.
It's an unbelievable contract.
And again, that goes back to lack of quarterbacks. There's no other options. I'll tell you who's going to be overpriced at this point is Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be like these teams that are missing out. They're going to be scrambling.
Get that right.
And just one more Tom Brady fun fact. The day that he announced his unretirement, the Vegas Super Bowl odds for the Bucks were 50 to 1. They go down to 10 to 1.
Oh,
right?
my Lord.
If you compare that to what happened to the Washington Commanders, their Super Bowl odds were 70 to 1. They get Carson Wentz, and it goes up 75 to 1. That's not a good look for the quarterback or the team or anything. And I'm just going to talk about this last point because we kind of have to with quarterbacks and big names. But Deshaun Watson is talking to several teams. I think he's narrowed it down at this point to the Falcons and the Saints. It's a toss-up. There's a couple teams
Carolina
in the mix. They're in the mix.
Yep.
But it's looking like Atlanta and New Orleans don't really care about all the off-the-field stuff. If I were the Texans, I would just take the best deal. So I don't necessarily agree with the fact of shutting the Colts out. I mean, I wouldn't want to see them twice a year, but if I can convince you to give me, Jonathan Taylor and 2 number ones, I'd do it. But
as a defensive player on the Texans, I'm sure most of them are hoping that he goes to a team in their division.
Well, sure,
but I kind of agree with you there. You don't want to see him 2 times a year, but at the same same way you want to exact some revenge.
And then because that happened, now you have a possibly unhappy Matt Ryan in Atlanta.
Yep.
And you definitely have an unhappy Baker, Reagan, Mayfield. I know his middle name now because he sent out this tweet signed Baker, Reagan, Mayfield.
Yeah.
That basically thanking the city of Cleveland for the 4 years. So what do you make of that? I mean, he already gave up. Like, he's already kind of cut ties with the team now.
You know, Baker is just he's an unknown. You just don't know what to expect from him. He's such a polarizing figure when it comes to quarterbacks. You know, at times you think, oh man, you know, this guy, he's got some elite abilities. You know, he's looking really good. Then the next game, you know, it looks like it's his first year in the league. And it seems like he might have a problem getting along with some players on the team, perhaps. I don't know, the inner workings of all that, but Baker is just, man, you don't know whether to think he's a really good quarterback or an average quarterback half the time. So maybe he does need a change of scenery. I think maybe the Browns fans have pretty much had enough of him and are looking for a change, perhaps. I don't know.
I think that goes for like about 20 teams in the NFL now, though. Yeah. Like, do we have an okay quarterback or a good quarterback, or what do we have here? And that's why there's such a scramble for these guys at the top. Well, I also mentioned this, but the MLB lockout is over.
Yes.
It lasted, to my calculation, 40 days longer than Tom Brady's retirement at 99 days. It started back on December 2nd. They had already canceled the first two series, 6 games or so, depending on the team's schedule.
Yep.
They've reinstated those. They announced a ton of doubleheaders earlier this week. It'll be a full 162 games. Outside of the obvious things that they were, scrapping about, like more pay for the lower tier players and luxury tax stuff and things like that. I found some of these things interesting. No more rotating interleague play. There's going to be less divisional games, 14 down from 19.
Yep.
I love beating the Rangers, but even that got like exhausting, right? And no more game 163 tiebreakers. I don't like that one. I like that having to play to get into the wild card.
I do too. I don't understand the reasoning behind that. So how are they going to work that out? Are they going to go strength of schedule? Or are they going to go head up?
I think there's a formula that involves several of those
like
things.
Football,
yeah, you're going to have the tiebreakers going on down. Thinking about it now, it probably came down to pay, because you would have to pay those guys essentially for an extra regular season game.
Right.
Maybe that's what it came down to, because they were very... I mean, a lot of this was haggling over seemingly small things, like we have to have 162 games, because if we don't reach that mark, it's not really the paycheck.
Full pay.
Well, it's not only that, but I didn't realize things like tenure. Like, they don't get that veteran tenure on those games. They would lose that. So a lot of things like that. Now, this has led to a crazy week, because now we're jumping into spring training. Just this morning, I don't know if you heard, Freddie Freeman to the Dodgers.
Wow.
And it's just...
I just breezed past it, but that's big.
I saw an article that said this is sad for baseball. I kind of agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand what was going through the Braves' head not going all in on that guy, because, I mean... But I'm looking at it from, this dude brought you a championship, give him everything and let him retire in 10 years, right?
Yes.
But that happened... and guess who the top remaining free agent still is? It's Carlos Correa.
Yeah, maybe.
And Machete Maldonado has been making some ominous tweets, we'll just say. We'll let you look up Martin Maldonado's Twitter yourself and see the emojis he's been using. But I have hope again that Correa's going to be back.
Absolutely. The buzz is pretty darn strong that Carlos has a very good chance of remaining in Houston, which I've thought all along was the best thing for him. Why would you want to break up a dynasty? Your best buddies that you've been playing with for years. The team has such good chemistry. They gel so well together. And I would love for Carlos to stay. And it looks like, I'd say there's an 80% chance right now that he's probably going to stay, because, Drake McClain Jr. Not Drake McClain. Jim Crane has stepped in and gotten directly involved in the situation, and he is doing everything in his power to keep Carlos in this city, and I think he's going to do it.
I want to see it. I understand paying, and now the way everything else is working out is looking probably like a short term deal, which I'm fine with. I just want him to be here, and then he can figure out his future later.
Right.
But I think that the outside market has kind of dried up. However, I don't know. Again, we're talking millions more money than we would ever see, but reports this morning where Baltimore has offered him that $300 million contract.
Yeah.
But you'd have to be an Oriole.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the downside, right? I mean,
you would have to live in Baltimore.
I mean,
no offense, Baltimoreans, but
if I was Astros at this point, and if I was Correa, just because we're already going into the season. It's April 7th, by the way, is the new opening date. I would just take like a $35 million 1-year deal, which, again, it's insane for a shortstop. But I just told you, Aaron Rodgers is making 59.3 for 16, maybe 17 games of football.
Very unusual that a football player is making more than a baseball player.
And just one more note: the whole Freddie Freeman move to the Dodgers was sort of spurned by the fact when I said the Braves sort of gave up on him. They actually traded for Matt Olson. To fill that hole, and then immediately gave him like a big $163 million contract extension. So I would have put the extra money in for Freeman, but oh well. And then some NHL news. We don't talk about that much here because we haven't seen ice in Texas since last February. But Alex Ovechkin has become the NHL's third all-time leading scorer by himself. He was tied with Jaromir Jagr. He passed him with his 767th goal on Tuesday night. Now, he's done this in 1,256 games, which is very impressive because Gordie Howe is next with 801, definitely catchable if he comes back next year. But that took him 1,767 games to get to 801. And then, of course, I don't think Gretzky's touchable at this point, but the great one is number one with 894, and he did it in under 1,500 games.
Yeah, I agree. I think Gretzky's record is going to be safe for as long as you and I are on this planet.
I think so. I mean, the great one for a reason, and you've had Ovechkin and Crosby have been amazing, generational players, but they're not Gretzky.
No,
still not yet. But I mean, you're always going to have that argument, and then our generation is always going to cling to Michael Jordan forever as well. Players like that. So. All right, let's talk about the card portion of Cards to Yards. What do you got as far as new and recent releases?
Yeah, so we've got Origins basketball in this week. That's super hot. We got Contenders football in last week. That's blowing off the shelves. Limited football should be here today or tomorrow. If you're watching the podcast, probably yesterday or that day. And then next week we've got we also got Topps Heritage 2022 with the real one autographs, which I absolutely love that set.
500 card base set for set builders like me, and I'm so glad that the lockout is not happening because I was getting to the point where I was taking that expanded roster and just like putting the guys on the field and just having an imaginary game in my brain. I love Heritage. It's not for high-end collectors, but oh man, what a fun set to build, and any wonder you get out of there.
Yeah, it is a fantastic checklist every year, and it's a different product, a mix of old and new, and I enjoy it as well. So yeah, come and get your Heritage baseball. Now next week, not a whole lot of stuff coming out. The big release next week is going to be Prism UFC. UFC is on fire. So it's going to be the second release ever of Prism UFC, their second inaugural release of that. So I know there's a lot of UFC fans we've got here in the stadium, so definitely come on in and get your UFC box. And as usual, we're going to plug HGA grading. Bring your cards in. Let me take a look at them, and we'll give you an honest opinion what we think you're going to get on a grade. And HGA has been on top of their game recently. They were behind for a while. They've caught up. They're actually their turnaround times are right on spot, and I've actually got a few orders back early. So you can rest assured your cards are in good hands. You're going to get them back in a timely manner, and the most beautiful slabs in the world, as far as I'm concerned, with HGA. And in the Heritage, they say you can get a autograph or a relic card in each box. What do you think about relic cards?
I think they're fun. So we end the show every time with a glossary term of the week because Preston and I wax poetic about wax. And I'll be constantly spinning out terms, and people are like, what does that mean? A relic card's a card with a piece of memorabilia added into it. Speaking of another product, Topps Opening Day, another cheap fun rip, and that has relic cards with actual dirt in it, which may not sound appealing, but I assure you they look good. They have like a airtight pocket of embedded dirt.
From the World Series or something?
Yeah, players like Carlos Correa are in there, and then they have signed versions of that. But yeah, relic cards were pretty inventive back in the day. That was when Upper Deck bought up a bunch of game-used jerseys, put them in cards. So I think Heritage, as you mentioned, has bat cards as well. And some of the Topps products even have like buttons and socks and all kinds of stuff.
Cleats, pieces of the helmets. I mean, you name it.
Yeah, but those relic cards are fun, also known as jersey cards. But obviously, all the things I just mentioned, buttons, dirt. I'm surprised they haven't had one called like Blood, Sweat, and Tears, where they just have the player cry into a vial and then like put it in a card. Yeah. Remember those Wave of the Future from Flair? They had like that pocket water, and I was like, ooh, this is dangerous.
Yeah.
But that's what a relic card is. So hunt for those, and now you can open baseball cards and not cry about having no season because we have one.
That's right. I can't.
And when I say you, I mean me. But But
I'm right with you.
But thanks, Preston. Been a fun Cards to Yards here. It feels like football's back. It's not. Baseball is back.
Yeah.
Football around the corner.
Yeah.
Because we just can't get away from it.
No, we can't.
And just like Tom Brady, he can't get away from it either. Or can the game not get away from Tom Brady? Depends on how you look at it. But thank you, Preston. This is Mark for Cards to Yards. We'll send it back to you, Chaz.
Well, gang, that's all for today's episode. So join us next week. Cards to Yards, brought to you by the Adventure Stadium, and the adventure begins. Again, we're located off 1488 and Woodland Square Boulevard. See you next time.